The first act and the third act of Top Gun Maverick are incredible. The first act, heavy with the nostalgia and the feels. Like the opening credit sequence, I had a huge smile on my face. I was like, I can't believe they're doing this. I can't believe they were able to recreate this feeling of the first movie and movies like that. Then the third act, an amazing white-knuckle roller coaster ride of adrenaline. Military thrillers don't get better. But what about the second act? Well, that's a Lifetime movie for dudes, a Tommy Bahama catalog brought to life. And no disrespect, I actually own one or two things from Tommy Bahama. I wouldn't want a whole closet full of Tommy Bahama, but it's a nice place to visit once or twice. It's okay, it's nice, but it's not my scene. If it ain't your scene, the middle of the movie is a great time to take a bathroom break or go get snacks. And I was a little worried during the middle of the movie because I didn't know that amazing third act was coming. I was like, uh-oh. Now, I want to make it clear, overall, I love this movie. It is one of the best movies of the year so far, and more evidence that Tom Cruise is so lucky to have met Christopher McQuarrie. That makes Valkyrie totally worth it, because it brought those two guys together. And that Christopher McQuarrie seems to be cool with only making Tom Cruise movies for the rest of his life. McQuarrie worked on the script here and clearly came up with the amazing third act. It's got McQuarrie written all over it. Really, I was like, are we doing this? We are? Oh my God, there's 25 to 30 minutes of the movie left? I can't believe it. It was so cool. Avoid spoilers. McQuarrie is a perfect match with Joseph Kosinski, the director, who has a mastery of visuals, but so far, awful luck with his scripts. Like, Kosinski's scripts have been horrible, and his movies, therefore, not good. But finally, Tom Cruise, who's worked with both in the past, put these two guys together and made an amazing movie for himself. This is great. The fact that Kosinski and McQuarrie seem to be Team Cruise for good is one of the reasons that Tom Cruise is experiencing such career longevity. He cherry-picked these guys behind camera himself, and kudos to Cruise for doing that. Literally, for the third act of the film, I was jumping up and down in my seat. I was doing fist bumps. I was like, yeah! I really was. I really was doing that. I was engaged. I was very engaged. But before that, during the second act, I did do some eye rolling. So I want to touch on that first before talking about what I absolutely loved about the movie. And again, no spoilers. And I really hope that you might be like, what kind of spoilers could there be for Top Gun Maverick? There are spoilers. Avoid them. Now, just as the male characters in a Lifetime movie are idealistic props, it's the same here with the female characters, which I found a little frustrating as a feminist female viewer. You know what I'm like at this point. But when the movie is good, it's so good. And there ain't nothing wrong with celebrating male camaraderie, which is what the first Top Gun was about. That's what this movie is about. Which is why I think Tom Cruise fought for Val Kilmer to return for a single scene here. Very well done. But not for Kelly McGillis or Meg Ryan. McGillis has been quite vocal about her anger and frustration over not being invited back. Meg Ryan hasn't said anything. And both those women had major roles in the first film. They even show a little of Meg Ryan here, and you're like, but Meg Ryan's still alive. But anyway, and they could both totally be in this movie today, but they're not. I think that both these actresses represent some of the very frank realities of getting older, but neither of them fits into the fantasy of the Tommy Bahama catalog. Even Val Kilmer is a tough fit, to be honest, but they make it work with him. Director Kosinski said in a recent interview that Top Gun Maverick did not bring back these actresses, McGillis and Ryan, because it didn't want to have all of its storylines looking backward, which is ridiculous, because this is a whole movie about looking backward. That's all the movie is, about a hotshot pilot taking a hard look in the mirror about how far he's going to go in life and what his legacy will be. And he's okay with that because the answers to those questions are pretty darn good. That's what this movie is. It's like, I'm going to bottom line it for you. But guess what? The bottom line's pretty great. Although to be fair to Cruise, for the first time in his career, he embraces that he's a tiny guy, small in stature. He's infamous for making his leading ladies walk in ditches or himself stand on an apple box in scenes to hide that he's just 5'7". But he must have realized when filming this movie that there aren't enough apple boxes in the world to bring him up to the height of his taller, younger male co-stars. And to be fair, in the original film, Kilmer towered over Cruise. So maybe that's another reason he was okay with it here. But I have to say, to see Cruise accepting his vulnerabilities in that way and in other ways in this movie is pretty moving, especially for an actor famous or perhaps infamous for putting up an impenetrable exterior. Heck, at this rate, maybe one day he'll make a movie about how maybe he shouldn't have become the poster boy for Scientology. Also, while this movie is obviously super patriotic, it is a perfect Memorial Day weekend release. Paramount couldn't have wished for a better release date. They've held this movie for since the beginning of the pandemic, and they were right to do so. And I think it's going to play very well in both red and blue states. I think, red states for the obvious reasons, and I think blue states because of the quality of the storytelling and those that amazing third act. Also, I think blue states will intellectually appreciate, I think we're all patriotic, but I think blue states will really appreciate the ability to replicate a certain type of Hollywood movie from the 80s and 90s. More on that in a moment. But I would like to point out, because I stayed for the end credits to see if there was an end credit scene. There is not. It's an old school movie. There's not an end credit scene. But when they were going over the people who brought this movie to life via the visual effects, they're almost all in India. It was just a wall of names of people from India. And I think that that's important to realize, that that's who was a vital part of making this movie happen. And other countries I've read over the years have very impressive fighter pilot programs. The enemy in this movie is super cool, but generic. It's a generic enemy. I'd love a third Top Gun movie. I actually would really like a third Top Gun movie, which focuses on maybe our fighter pilots and then some of our allies as well, to shine a spotlight on those individuals. This new Top Gun tries to be diverse, reflecting today's military, which is admirable. But it's really a movie about Tom Cruise and Miles Teller. And it's a really good movie about Tom Cruise and Miles Teller. Now, again, as I said, avoid spoilers. Top Gun Maverick has a lot of really great surprises, even at the beginning of the movie, because it's fun to learn the details of the movie's main mission with the characters. And it's all explained extremely well. I was like, oh, okay, really? Thanks for that briefing. I'm excited. Also, you need to see it on a premium screen, IMAX or Dolby. I saw it on a teeny tiny screen. They had an IMAX showing, but I didn't like the theater where they were playing it, so I opted for a tiny screen, but it did have Dolby sound. And it delivered, even on that tiny screen. But I already purchased, as soon as I got out of the theater, a couple hours later, but the same night, I purchased tickets to see it again in IMAX when it hits theaters, because I want to see it on that big screen. This is a fantastic reproduction of a certain type of movie that Hollywood made in the 1980s and 90s. This kind of high-gloss, optimistic film. And it's really fun to see it revisited here, complete with a lot of the music from the original film, including Danger Zone. So great. It's got the sun-kissed California vistas. Oh, it was gorgeous. They were in San Diego for a lot of the movie. I'm like, isn't that where Comic-Con is? And they're like, no, we're focusing on the military. And I'm like, well, if you pan to the left or right, it's Comic-Con. But anyway, Ray-Bans for everybody. Everybody looks great in Ray-Bans. And a lot of muscly tan, sweaty bodies, to the point where it was almost comedic. I was like, who's standing off camera with a spray bottle ready to mist these actors in between takes? They were like, they gotta be misty, they gotta be glistening. And oh, they were. It was hilarious. It's classic Bruckheimer, who produces again. It's classic Tony Scott, who unfortunately has passed away but made some incredible movies during his career, including the first Top Gun, and to whom this movie is dedicated. But the third act, it's not jarring. It still fits with the rest of the movie, but it goes all modern military thriller. It's Tom Clancy meets Jason Bourne. Oh, I loved it. With the most amazing fighter pilot cinematic storytelling you've ever seen, with computer tracking helping us keep track of these incredible machines, weapons, as they cut through the sky. Because they're doing these incredible aerial tricks. It's just amazing, but they have this computer that helps you watch and understand what's happening. It was so well done. Watching the film, I was like, it sucks Paramount doesn't have its own theme parks, because this is a ride. Strap me in, I want to go with you, Maverick. Although, speaking of thrill rides, it drove me crazy that Tom Cruise and Jennifer Connelly never wore helmets on their motorcycle. I almost even shouted out during my press screening, put a helmet on, because it was so wildly irresponsible. All right, as for the cast, stellar! Tom Cruise is at the top of his game here, but as I said, showing new vulnerabilities. Almost 60, he's no longer fighting against getting older. For a long time, he pretended it wasn't happening, but now he's showing how well it can be done, and he's doing it really well. He's fantastic here. And while Miles Teller might be a jerk in real life, I've interviewed him. He can't help it. He's a jerk. But I don't know, I don't think you can hold it against him. I've never heard of him doing anything bad. It's just he has a jerky personality. But he continues to be a fantastic and very likable actor on screen. He's fantastic. He's currently killing it on Paramount Plus in The Offer. Love that show. And he easily holds his own here opposite a movie star. I'm like, Miles Teller, you should be back in movies. He's great. If you've ever seen a Miles Teller movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He's really charismatic. As for the rest of the film, it's very well cast. Ed Harris, John Hamm, Charles Parnell, and Bashir Salahuddin all do a fantastic job representing tough yet lovable naval leaders. They were great. They're all a bunch of teddy bears. I loved it. Other standouts are Glen Powell doing a very good Tom Cruise impression. The whole movie focuses on Teller playing Goose's son. That's not a spoiler, it's the whole setup. But if you told me Powell was supposed to be Cruise's son, I'd believe it. He looks that much like him and acts that much like him. And Lewis Pullman, I was like, is that Bill Pullman's son? It is. He is hilarious, stealing scenes left and right as a nerd who can go toe-to-toe with the jocks. He knows where Comic-Con is. He knows where it is. I liked him a lot. All the other actors look fantastic. Danny Ramirez is even in this movie. But you'd have to know that going in to really spot him. Because they're mostly background, even when they're key parts of the mission. Finally, as for Lady Gaga's song that so many of you have been asking me about, while I love me some Lady Gaga, I'm a huge Lady Gaga fan. For the life of me, I could not tell you where it played during this movie. It just did not register, and I'm sad to say that. I was just so focused on the original score and Danger Zone, I didn't hear anything else. Top Gun Maverick is almost as good as Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie's recent Mission Impossible movies. Not quite, but close. That good. And definitely a must-see on the biggest screen you can find. And I can't think of a better summer movie and a true crowd pleaser. Even with that middle act, which I do not think is going to be for everybody. But the beginning and the end are undeniably astounding filmmaking. You don't get better than that. It has to compete with Obi Wan and Stranger Things over Memorial Day weekend, but I got to tell you, tear yourself away from your streaming device. Go outside into the sun-kissed vista, right? Go see this movie. Go out to your local multiplex, put your feet up, get some soda and popcorn, and watch this movie. It is one heck of a Hollywood blockbuster. People like to say they just don't make them like that anymore. They do. But this is really cool because they also improved upon it and brought in some modern elements with that third act. Oh, it's great. So that's my non-spoiler review of Top Gun Maverick. Share your own thoughts down below if you've seen the film somehow, because they've been showing it to people. Don't spoil anything. Subscribe today so you don't miss my spoiler review. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.